Hey everybody, BTO Pro here, coming to you live from an undisclosed location. I mean, we're not actually live. It was live when I recorded. It sounded better in my head. So I'm going to record a little tiny video here, hopefully showing you how to get some of the initial dependencies you'll need for taking this course. And by this course, I mean actually being a web developer. You need front-end development tools if you're ever going to do anything. If you've ever looked at other repos or projects people have made and there's like a bajillion files, I assure you no one actually writes them. It's all toolchain driven, all automation. So let's move me out of the way because I don't really matter. And let's start looking at what I claim you have to do for this class. So what we have is this. We're into beginning of the course and tooling. So for homework, we're going to have to get these dependencies installed. So I better show you how to do it for when you're like, why didn't you record class? So the big ones we need are NPM. And NPM is actually, I could say, search for NPM.js. We'll get into what this is, why it's incredible. But I'm going to search Node.js, install. If you have Windows, note there's always a thing saying on Windows. I wonder why that would be. You might want to install the WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux, in order to take this course. I don't have a Windows machine, so I can't really help you there as far as telling you the best way to do it. We're going to have to kind of fumble our way forward. It changes every semester as to how easy it is to do one or the other. So anyway, if you find these in little things at the top of my browser results interesting ever as we have class, that's because I have a thing called grepper. And grepper is kind of like Reddit, but inline with little code snippets or code, CodePen, things like that. Sorry, Stack Overflow. So anyway, I'm going to go to nodejs.org. You can download these binaries, as it says, right? So you download this, get the LTS. And when you get Node.js, you're going to have NPM. Now, I also highly recommend installing something called OhmyZush. It's I don't even know. It's kind of like a terminal augmentation, dash augmentation thing. It's ohmyz.sh. Very clever. What it ends up giving you is some nice color coding, and particularly the built-in plugins are really easy to tell, like when you're using Git, when you're out of sync with version control, when you have to put files into version control, what branch you're on. And you can see these all at a glance as they have here. So after you install Node, I would recommend getting this. This is primarily for Mac and Linux. I do have a link in the notes for how to do this on Windows. I haven't followed that tutorial because I don't have Windows, but it's got a lot of hearts and unicorns, so I'm pretty sure it's legit. Anyway, so what I can do if I actually get Node installed, I should be able to type node space -v. Now you'll see I have 14.16.1. That's fine. If you have an older version of Node and it's at least 12 dot whatever, if it's 14 dot whatever, that's even better. If it's 16 dot whatever, probably even better. It's not a huge difference between these. Most things are just going to work. You might want to try and get up to 16 just for fun. But in order to prove that this does work with older versions, I'm going to keep running through it on 14 for the time being. So it says what we're trying to do is we got to get yarn npm node installed. Now, when we have these things installed, I'll be able to type the letters npm and get something like this, a response, instead of saying like program not found. In this case, it's telling me where this version comes from exactly, which is nice. And you can see I have npm client 6.14.12, not super important. Then being able to run yarn, right? And I have yarn because it responded. So it's good. I could also do yarn v, and again, versioning. I have a much older version of yarn. It's just a program. When you run these commands, you're running a program. Most of the time, it's not a huge deal as far as version. Sometimes when you get really into the weeds with a very big project, there are specific things that tap into different aspects of these programs, just so you're aware. Also, typing git, right? And so I have git. Now, you're going to have to install those things in order to do anything valuable this semester. So the main thing that it says you have to be able to do is be able to run this command. So npm init at openwc. Now, the at symbol is more or less pointing to something on npmjs.com, and there's some package of some name. So when we run npm commands, we're basically hitting this registry, and it's pulling in whatever the dependencies are and setting them up for us. So one project, and you could build this yourself, basically all these different toolings are all these different projects are doing is leveraging and running through the tooling in a very specific way. All of them are just stitching together all of this stuff so that you can get started working more rapidly. You can make web components in this case, or you can make whatever, from scratch. But if somebody's made a really good boilerplate, you're kind of just stamping out the boilerplate or running through a CLI, command line interface, to answer some questions and save yourself a hell of a lot of time. So that's what we're doing here. OpenWC is not the way to make web components, but it's a pretty darn good way to make web components. It's very easy to follow. So I'm going to make a folder, mkdir -p, and I'm going to call mine stuff/things/whatever. I only run this command because what that just did, and seeing how I can use on my Zush in this way, I can just do tab/tab/tab and get to where I want to go. All about shortcuts and doing as little effort as possible to actually achieve the objective, because I'm lazy. And you should be lazy too. So now it says you should go to GitHub. So I got way too many GitHub links. I'm just going to go to any one of them. I'm going to hit new up here. I'm going to do repository. And I'm going to say things and stuff element. Again, you can name yours whatever. I highly recommend something more logical than that, but I already have things like Hello World and EdTechJoker and stuff like that in my repertoire. A boilerplate thing. Okay, so it's going to be public. I'm not going to initialize it with any of this stuff. We'll just leave it be. So create that repo. It's public. And then you should get instructions on how to pull it. And it'll say, hey, here's how to commit your first file, all that fun stuff. So what you're going to do, you're going to copy your equivalent of this. Again, after all that other stuff is set up, I'm going to go over to the terminal. I'm in a folder where I'm going to clone this. And I'm going to type git clone. I'm going to paste that in. You appear to have cloned an empty repository. Yes, it has nothing in it. And that's kind of fun that it said that. So what I'll get then, if I type ls space -las, that's what I like to run to give me a listing and give me some additional stats. If I just type ls, it'll just say like, hey, here's this folder. So I have that folder, and then I can cd change directory into that folder. And now we see this is in Git version control on the master branch. And the reason I'm aware of that is from OhmyZush. So OhmyZush is providing that little nugget of functionality. So when we get to this empty folder here, what we're then going to want to run is, oh, by the way, if you don't have CopyQ and you're on Linux, you're missing out. CopyQ is amazing, which is what you're seeing right there. So I can paste this command in, which is from the OpenWC docs, and it's npm init, which is initialize this repo or whatever I'm working on, using the @open-wc project. So let's see what happens. It's going to run. We're going to test how good the Wi-Fi is here, and it apparently is great in undisclosed location. So that just installed 58 different packages, as it says, in 5.4 seconds. Now, in JavaScript land, in the ecosystem, those packages could be like 5 lines of code. They could be several thousand million lines of code. Packages can be of any size and dependency tree, if you will. So I'm going to do scaffold a new project. I'm going to pick web component because that's what we're building right now. Now, this is very confusing, especially first time. What you're seeing is a radio bubble option select. This is a large part of why I'm actually recording a video, to show you why these things are this way. I'm going to hit spacebar, and then the down arrow, and then spacebar, and the down arrow, and the spacebar. And when the lights light up green, or whatever color they are on your terminal, that means that those are selected, and you're going to actually run through, and it's going to add these things into your project. So in this case, OpenWC is just kind of a housing, and it's saying, I'm going to help you make a web component, which is a specific way of structuring JavaScript. I'm also going to give you some linting tools. And linting helps to make sure you don't commit bad code, even if it's like, hey, you've got a comma at the end of this JSON or blob, but you don't need that comma and it'll still work, so it'll take it out. Testing, which involves making sure that your element works in an automated and tested way. We'll get into this a bit throughout the semester as well. It's important to write good tests, or at least boilerplate decent ones, so that the machine can tell you as your team keeps working on the code, hey, this thing's not accessible, or hey, you wrote a test that said that this should be the number 15. It's not the number 15 right now. Somebody screwed something up. And then demoing has to do with the way people can leverage your element as an API and extend it. So I'm going to hit enter so we get all those. This is very important. When you get out in industry, this would you like TypeScript is going to be clicked yes by a lot of organizations. For various reasons, I don't care for TypeScript. We're not going to focus on TypeScript. TypeScript is kind of an abstraction of JavaScript to add better type checking. So JavaScript is an extremely lazily typed language. Like the string 0 is at times equivalent or will pass for the number 0, and will pass for false, and will pass for empty. So because of this, what we want to do is we want to focus on pure JavaScript. So we're all on the same page, and you learn the things below TypeScript. You can learn TypeScript at another point in time, and it's easier to know why TypeScript is doing certain things once you've understood it at the lower level. Oh no, it revealed where I am. So would you like to use TypeScript? No. Name your tag. Most likely you'll say hello world. And then what it's going to do is it hasn't done anything yet, but it's telling you, and if you scroll up in the window, here's all the stuff I'm going to write to disk. So again, you could have manufactured all of these files, but instead we're going to lean on the tooling to do that for us. Yes, I want to write these to disk. Do you want to install dependencies? Now, if you have Yarn installed correctly, it'll say yes, comma, with Yarn. You do want to install dependencies. You can do Yarn or NPM. I tell you to get Yarn because there are certain projects that are just easier to manage with Yarn. They install faster, things like that. So try to stick to Yarn if you can. If you end up having a lot of trouble with Yarn and you just want to roll with NPM, then that's fine. But I'm going to do Yarn. So it's going to say installing dependencies. This might take some time. So what's happening is it's looking at every single project's package.json file. And so it's authored a package.json file. In there, it says, hey, I need these 2 dependencies. I'm making this up. Then what npmjs.com does is it goes out to, okay, well, let's go to each of those dependencies. Oh, they have a package.json. Oh, they have these dependencies. Let's go to those. Let's go to those. Let's go to those. Let's go to those. Go to those. And it basically generates this giant tree of what the dependencies are. And we can see right there, it says done in 35 seconds. I don't know if it actually said how big it was. There's some good stuff that involves node modules and being bigger than a black hole. So, okay, now it says all you need to do is run cd hello world, okay? And then npm run start. Other shortcuts are yarn start. Other shortcuts are yarn or npm start, right? These are all going to run the same thing. Now, if you installed the project with Yarn, then you're going to need to run start with Yarn. And if you did npm, then you're going to need to do npm. So yarn start, and you should see this little hello world. So from there, you need to go the rest of the way, get this pushed back up to GitHub. I can go back a level and say git status, git add a, git commit m, starting point, git push origin master. Oops, git push origin master. Yours might be main. It has to do with when you got a GitHub account. So this is git push to origin, which is GitHub, whatever branch you're on. So I do git push origin master, and now my code should be up here. And so I've at least satisfied the initial things that you need to do for this early assignment. There's a lot of other stuff there about SSH keys. Getting that stuff in place is going to make you happy throughout the course. And then there's expectations of what to see. So that is just the starting point. From there, you're going to need to go run through these expectations, get this stuff in place, try and make your element be like these, and I'll give you some resources on how to get started. See you in class.